Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's clinical webinar. Our title is From Detection to Detox, and we have our guest speaker, Dr. Paul Savage. I'm Dr. Kim Bruno. I am the Director of Clinical Outreach here at Vibrant, and I'm going to go over some housekeeping rules as we get started. So all attendees are in listening mode. If you have any questions, please use them in the comment section. And then there will be time for Q&A at the end, and we will go through all of those questions, and Dr. Savage will be able to answer those. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Paul Savage. At 37 years old, Dr. Paul Savage was a successful ER and trauma physician, but he was unhealthy, weighed 267 pounds, smoked cigarettes, was tired, anxious, and unwell, and had high cholesterol, high blood pressure, prediabetes, and stress. Rejecting the conventional approach of more medications, his curiosity and determination led him to explore various treatments and lifestyle changes. From transformation, and transformed his life and career through integrative medicine. 25 years later, he is an advocate for combining traditional and integrative medicine, focusing on a holistic, evidence-based approach that treats patients as partners. Dr. Savage embraces and continues pursuit of knowledge and integration of the latest medical advancements into his practice with several board certifications, including certifications from the Stem Cell Fellowship, Integrative Metabolic Medicine, and the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Dr. Savage, welcome to our clinical webinar. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks, Kim. It's very enjoyable to be back with Vibrant. I'm looking forward to this presentation today. I should tell your viewers already, this is going to be almost the first time that this information is being demonstrated. And if I haven't caught your attention within the first 3 slides, I promise you I will. So make sure we stay around for the entire presentation. So let's get started here. As Dr. Bruno said, I'm Dr. Paul Savage. And I transformed my life. I didn't have a choice. Every guy in my family dies by 65. And it's usually from cancer. And here I am at 38 years old in front of my doctor, and he didn't give me choice. He's like, you either change or you're going to die. And I took him seriously. And that began an incredibly wonderful journey. Through that journey, I've had a couple aha moments. I think most of you out there understand that those are the moments, as my martial art teacher would tell me, that you felt the world change around you. One of them was back in the 1990s when I was unhealthy and trying to get into shape, was the discovery that you can give healthy guys testosterone. Now, that was way back when it wasn't very popular, but I started a group of clinics called Biologic MD and grew to 50 clinics in about 5 years, based upon the whole premise that hormones were safe and effective. And now here we are many years later with that pretty well being much more accepted, if not pretty standard in its presentation. Next, I really had an aha moment when I realized we don't have enough data collection in this world of integrated medicine. So I went out and built the largest EMR in the integrated space. And last time I knew, there was over 2,500 doctors on the system and over 3 million patients. The data is phenomenal. But I would tell you, my greatest aha moment happened August 30th, 2022, about 3 weeks after I had retired, because I decided to sell the practice and step back for a minute, see what I was going to do. And I got a paper from a colleague of mine he was reviewing, had to do with plasma exchange and reversing the biomarkers of aging. I read it intently and I felt the world change. I suddenly realized a great secret, at least I thought it was a discovery of a secret that nobody else had looked at, which is through plasma exchange, for the first time ever, we're able to change the microenvironment and clean up the toxicity. And that's what this lecture is about. Now, before I get started, I do need to acknowledge a couple key people that were part of this whole process for the last couple of years. Dr. Jin Shi, he's an esteemed data scientist. He works with the Medical College of Georgia. The man has a Google score of 78. He's cited over 20,000 times, written 400 to 500 papers, and he's a data scientist. He's along with us so that he can verify for us and for you the data we're presenting is true. And Dr. Paul Anderson, who's been a longtime colleague and friend of mine, he was my mentor. He taught me everything I needed to know about IV nutrition and therapy and everything that you did want to know about detoxing people. And he's really, he presents himself as a detoxicologist because what he does is basically come up with all these different programs that get heavy metals out or get mold out or get pesticides out. And he has programs individualized for every one of these toxins. And I'm very grateful that I've been able to spend the last 2 years working with these two gentlemen. And myself, I'm just a serial entrepreneur. I like data. I'm a mathematician. I like processes. I like showing people how to do things. And I like introducing things that help change people's lives. So let's move forward here, shall we? Stephen Hawking, a month before he died, said in an interview that pollution and stupidity remain the biggest dangers to the continued existence of the human race. That's before he died of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which now is recognized as a toxin-caused disease. That's a little bit more than sad irony there. Toxins. Well, they're toxic. We all know that. But what do they exactly do? The answer is everything. They cripple the enzymes, every biopathway that we have. They act as hormone disruptors. They burn the organs and the cell membranes. They not only break the DNA, but they change the way the DNA is transcribed. So on all those various levels, it affects the metabolism of the cell. But the most serious thing toxins do is when you have enough of them, they impair the detox pathways, all of them. They're kind of like antivitamins, where everybody knows you need an enzyme to run a reaction. That's why it's biochemistry. Everybody knows you need certain cofactors, which are minerals and nutritional vitamins that make the enzymes form into the shape they do to do their function. But I think very few people realize that toxins mimic all of those things. Mercury mimics magnesium. BPA mimics estrogen. And when you have all these toxins, you kind of think of them as the anti-hormone, anti-vitamin to the system because they're occupying all these spots, but they're not making it work. In fact, they gunk up the whole machine. And when you get enough of the gunk from all these different various factors, it stops working. So if you look through the timeline back in time where the problem really started, it really is quite obvious if you've lived long enough and you're a fan of this black and white movies, people looked different back then than they do now, even on the newsreels, which is really quite astounding, where they used to be thin and tall, and now everybody's obese. The red line started in the 1960s. That's when we started, 1958. That's when we started putting herbicides into the crops. Atrazine was one of the first ones that we introduced. And since that time, it's just progressed. So we started spraying the crops. We started burning the fuel. We started digging the earth for all the rare metals. And we started the industrial manufacturing boom, which has now left us with nothing but toxins. In other words, the earth is now classified by science as a toxic planet. We have over 144,000 man-made chemicals that have been charted, categorized. But of that, we can only measure about 120 of them. That means about 1,000, 1 out of 1,000 toxins we can actually measure. So if you want to think about that a little bit, and let's say we're doing a panel that has 100 different toxins on it, and you have 30 of them, we're probably looking at more like 30,000 toxins in every individual. It's the magnitude of what we can test versus what's in the environment is hard to fathom, but it's very much like a 6-foot-tall man looking at a 7,000-tall mountain. So the problem with toxins, not only they gunk up everything and cause breakdown of every biomechanical pathway, they're difficult to remove. Even Dr. Anderson will say, chelation removes 4 to 5 of the heavy metals, lead, mercury, nickel, arsenic, maybe some degree cadmium, but the other ones, it does not. Aluminum, nope. None of the other ones. So that makes it very limited in scope. Plus, if you've done chelation therapy, and I've done every type of chelation therapy on patients, I've been in this integrative space for 25 years. I've had IV centers, we've done oral, we've done rectal, we've done all the different ways of chelation. It's a good day when you get about 25% of the heavy metals you can chelate out of the system. Chemicals, the ones we're talking about here, the environmental toxins, the pesticides, the herbicides, the phthalates, the volatile organic chemicals, all of those that are made by man. There is no direct method for getting any of these out. You can use saunas to make people sweat more, and that will remove some of them, like BPA to a certain degree, but we don't have an effective way of directly getting them out. And finally, the biotoxins, the molds, the bacterial, but also all the other ones that are much more danger. They require a series of events to occur in each case: displacement, then detox, and then elimination. And those protocols, if you've ever done them, they're pretty intense for people. You're doing so many things for a couple weeks, you're doing so many things for a couple weeks, and you keep repeating the cycle. And again, if you get 25%, Dr. Anderson says, it's a good day on any of them. I don't know if you guys watch the news very much, but in September 2023, the World Health Organization classified the leading cause of death. And I know you guys all know these, right? Number 4 is COVID, right? Isn't it 3 or 4? COVID at 11%. And then cancer's number 3 now. Wait, it should have been 2, but cancer's number 3 at 17%. And then we have heart diseases. Used to be number 1. Well, what's number 1? The World Health Organization now leads toxin as a leading cause of death. 1 out of every 4 deaths in the world is started by toxins. It may present as heart disease, respiratory disease, cancer, or infections because of the immune system being suppressed by the toxins. But toxins are now the cause of death. Toxins, as I say, are the ultimate silent killer. We know about the silent killers like high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes. Toxins are even more significant than those because there's every indication that toxins cause, or at least contribute to, a significant part of all of those current known silent killers. The toxin in the body, like I said, if the body can't detoxify properly, it'll store the toxins all over the place. But number 1, it loves to store it in tissues, organs, especially fat cell, and then it will float around in the plasma as well. So it's not that your body can get rid of them at that point. It's very interesting when you talk about chronic toxicity in patients. The traditional medicine and the CDC have all sorts of various protocols for acute intoxications, lead intoxication, all these different acute intoxications. We have protocols for those. I know. I'm an ER doc. I used to run one of the largest trauma centers in the world. We had a whole bunch of them for emergency acute detoxification. We have a lot of ways of getting drugs out of people because we've studied that as well. But we haven't studied chronic exposure to toxins. And currently, there is no accepted method of getting these toxins out in the traditional way of medicine has known. And to a degree, I agree with them. It has been very difficult, and Paul Anderson agrees with them, to use what we have currently in heavy metals and chelation and cholestyramine or any other kind of charcoal binder and all these different exercises and saunas and infrareds. They don't detoxify to a great deal. Matter of fact, when the study was done on all the herbals and nutrients on the toxicities that kind of take detoxifying agents, what we found about them was they actually worked downstream to help eliminate or repair the inflammation and the oxidation, but they weren't really detoxifying. They were just causing the downstream effects to be to a degree neutralized, which, hey, on any given day, 2 years ago, I would have taken that and accepted that as that's the best we can do. Plasma and plasma exchange and our protocol. Well, what we decided to do and what I figured out was plasma exchange, which is the way that the body is a way of just basically giving you an oil change. We hook you up to a machine. It's like a plasma donation machine. Your blood comes out. It filters through the machine. They get separated. We have the plasma and the red blood cells. We throw the plasma away. We give you back albumin with some saline. And then we give you, and our protocol, we're following it by nutrient therapy, and oral medication. Our reasoning is this. If you're an old car that's sitting in a garage for 50 years or a barn for 50 years and somebody comes upon you and looks at you. You're covered in weeds. You got dirt everywhere. There's no air in the tire. There's no gas in the tank, no oil in the crank, no spark in the plug. Plasma exchange essentially cleans everything out, gets rid of all the vines, all the weeds, all the dirt, but it doesn't do anything else. So what we decided to do with our knowledge of biochemistry and nutrients, we decided to supplement the body with everything it needed to restart the detox pathways, to invigorate the antioxidant pathways, to restore the inflammatory pathways, to repeat for the body everything it needed for energy requirements so that it could start up the engine again. Essentially, the plasma exchange did the oil change, and we did everything else so that the engine could start up and start working itself. Because the government is right when they say if exposed to only a certain amount of toxins, your body is able to handle the detox pathways. And that's true. But unfortunately, what they don't realize is that everybody's well past that line in the toxicity. In our clinic, we took 100 patients, 50 patients who were healthy, and we did toxin screenings on them. And the information was startling because of the 109 toxins we tested for, we found 90 of them. And we found them at levels that the government said was toxic. That was their reference range. Not what you and I would say, what's the normal amount of glyphosate? 0. The government says 7. So we used 7. And even then, 74% of the patients that we tested had high critical levels of glyphosate. And so the average number per person was 13, with over 40% of them being the high critical range. We've long passed the amount of toxins that the body can handle. As I mentioned, the toxin testing that we did was the urine testing that we used to detect heavy metals, the PFAs, all the environmental toxins, and the mycotoxins. We did do a provocative testing with DMSA so we could draw out more of the heavy metals. We've since changed that. We don't use that anymore because we got the answer we wanted, which is you're going to see. And this is what I was telling you about with all the different toxins that we tested in people. And what we found, it was amazing because nobody was free of toxins. The lowest we had was a guy who had 3, and they were all in the high critical range. The most we had was a woman with 33. Here's an interesting tidbit. The most toxic patients of those 50 that we tested, the 6 highest patients by far, they were well outside 2 standard deviations away from the 13, were all women. They were all over 60, and they were all relatively thin. The volume and distribution, in this case, mattered. The top 5 toxins that we found in our population, given the fact that we did provoke with DMSA, number 5 was arsenic. Yeah, that's a good one to have. Just a little bit of arsenic will kill you. But it's also, as we know, it's an oxidative agent. It's linked to everything that's bad. Number 4, mercury. And we found that in a significant number of people, over 50% of the people had toxic levels of mercury. Over 25% of them had high critical ranges of mercury. And we know the relationship with mercury and magnesium and in the neural function of the brain, as well as the heart. Then we have BPA, which is an estrogen, like a xenoestrogen. It's linked to everything bad because BPA, like every other estrogen, is a growth factor. And when you add it to an oxidative stressor like mercury, and you develop cancer or arsenic, you develop cancer, and then you give it an enzyme or a chemical that looks like estrogen, it grows. So we're using synthetic toxins to promote the development of and then the growth of cancer. And lead. Lead is one of the highest things that we had in all of our patients at 64% of people having toxic levels of lead. We don't need to go. This lecture is just not enough to talk how bad lead is. And it's in every city. I remember back in 2017, I was interviewed by WGN at the Flint crisis, and they wanted me to tell people what they could do. And I was like, what are you talking about, Flint? Chicago, look at these numbers. And I was showing them numbers way back in 17 about how many of these patients had lead toxicity in Chicago. And that's only gone up. And finally, number 1 in the Chicagoland area, and it's suspect nationwide, is glyphosate, Roundup. Monsanto's answer to herbicide. 250 million tons of this is put into our environment every year, and this stuff does not break down well. It is an extremely strong oxidative agent. In other words, it burns stuff. I mean, we put it on plants and it burns them. That's why they die. And when you start burning everything that glyphosate touches in the body and it gets inside your cells, it gets inside the mitochondria and starts making that dysfunction, not only are you killing cells and causing cancer, but you're causing the energy chain to break completely. As I said, IB therapy is, or IB TPA therapy is relatively easy. It has a very low risk rate. It's been around for 50 years. Now, I want to differentiate the difference between replacing with albumin and replacing with fresh frozen plasma. That's a big difference. Don't use fresh frozen plasma. We'll get into why. But albumin is relatively a standard commercial product now. It's not even considered to be a blood product, even though it comes from human plasma. So when we start the IV and the machine starts pulling your blood out, we add a anticoagulant citrate to it so it can run through the machine. It runs through the centrifuge. We separate the cells from the plasma. The cells get the plasma gets stored in those little bags you see on the upper right hand corner there, and then it dumps into a 2.5 liter bag inside of the machine because basically, in every person, we take about 2.5 to 3 liters and we're exchanging. Remember, you usually have about 3 to 3.5 liters of plasma in each person. And then we just put all the cells back with the albumin and we give it back to you. People walk out. When we're done, very few side effects, very few problems. We also present the patients with a lot of lifestyle changes. So they watch a video during their first procedure and they watch a video during their last procedure. And this is telling them how to eat organic and how to clean their vegetables and our recommendations for triple filtered reverse osmosis water system and our promotion of different mechanisms of ozone you can use to wash your clothes. So you're getting rid of all those chemical detergents and chemical softeners and how not to use dry cleaning and how to get rid of all your plastic and have everything in Pyrex in your house and enhance your detox through sweating. And of course, a shake that, as we mentioned, gives back everybody everything they need to reinvigorate all those incredibly important paths. What did we find? Well, pretty interesting. Dr. Anderson said, we'll check them at 2 weeks. And he knows because at 2 weeks, you're pretty much equilibrated, both in heavy metals, environmental toxins. He's the man to ask because he's done those studies to show what they are. And we did. And what we found was amazing. 90 to 100% of the aluminum. Matter of fact, aluminum was 100% in every patient of the 15 people that we tested. The lead, the nickel, and the thorium came out between 50 and 90%, and the mercury came around 50%. Arsenic was a very close follow. Uranium was 25%. Believe it or not, we have uranium in so many of the people now, probably because of the nuclear disaster in Japan. It's come across the ocean and it's now on our shore. In the environmental and forever chemicals of the waxes, we had 70 to 80% removal, pesticides of 60%, herbicides of 50 to 60%, glyphosate on average came out 60% on each patient that we tested, which is incredible because nothing has ever removed that before. And biphenyl A came out between 30 and 40% on all our patients. These numbers are huge numbers. We're talking about from baseline of toxicity. I should mention, we only looked at the levels that were high on both of the pre-tests of the 200 biomarkers we did. And then we followed up with the afterwards at 2 weeks and 6 weeks. And these are the numbers that we're seeing. We're seeing bioage as a marker, all the oxidative factors, the myeloperoxidase, the guanine, 8-hydroxydeguanine. We checked senescent factors with beta-galactase. We checked inflammation with CRP and all the interleukins and the tumor necrosis factor, all of them. I'm just showing you the outcome, but they all are going down incredible amount. And the immune system, and this number has been updated now with more data, the immune system is increasing 25 to 40% from baseline. So what we know that as we get older, as we more mature, our immune system weakens. I've often suspected that was toxin related because that was a new finding as of 2001. And the Hong Kong study on younger adults showed that they didn't have it. So I always suspected, but now we're starting to see all the biomarkers of aging changing because we cleaned up the microenvironment. That's why. Everybody wondered what I looked like on the last day of my tenure at the largest trauma center in the country when I was 267 pounds, and I felt awful. And that's when I was 38, and now I'm 61 and never been in better shape. Never want to go back. I want to thank everybody. We'll open up the floor for questions. But if anybody wish to get a hold of us, the website is MDLifespan.com. I'm happy to talk to all physicians, both about therapies for themselves and about therapies for any of their patients. And back to you, Dr. Bruno.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was fascinating. So I'm going to hover over some questions here. And I'll just pop them on the screen. All right. So first one, if a person still has amalgam fillings, should they avoid chlorella supplementation as it chelates mercury?
So the one thing we know about mercury fillings that we didn't know 25 years ago is don't drill them out. That whole thing about taking to the dentist and the dentist having a mercury-free with the air suction. And what we found out is people became incredibly toxic. So you took a mercury that was isolated in one part of the body and you just floated it everywhere in the body. For chlorella, any kind of supplementation that helps take the mercury out isn't taking it from the filling, and you will take it out from the body to a degree. But again, chlorella hasn't ever been shown to make a market reduction in the mercury. It does have quite an effect on the oxidative effect of mercury, which is also good if you can't get the mercury out completely. But the only effective, safe, and universally procedure is the one that we've developed. That's the only one that is currently being showed, and we have it now patented, and we are looking at the FDA as well to look at this process for helping people get complete detoxification of every chemical. Because I should mention the interesting thing is Dr. Shi, we were going over the data and we were all like, oh my God, we expected 40, 50%. We were seeing 60, 70, 80, not 100%. Paul Henderson and I were just marveling at how much numbers. And Dr. Jin said, you guys are looking at the wrong thing. And I said, what do you mean you're looking at the wrong thing? The numbers are all going down. He goes, that's my point. They're all going down. Every toxin you measured went down considerably. And so therefore, statistically, I can say, not only are you getting the toxins you measured out, you're probably getting the vast majority of toxins you can't measure out as well, since we did such a broad, and that's a powerful statement. That's a powerful statement.
Absolutely. Okay. So we had one clarifying question for the mercury, just to clarify. They're asking, so you just leave the mercury fillings in?
So yes, you leave the mercury filling in unless the patient is wanting to have the tooth extracted.
Got
In
it.
which you can take the tooth out because that's not going to expose the patient. When you aerosolize the mercury from drilling it out, that's where the danger is. It's kind of like going to a nuclear plant and going in and throwing all the nuclear debris up in the air and hoping that nobody gets exposed. It's like, stop doing that. But
Right.
the whole nuclear plant out, put it on a rocket and ship it off into space. Let's do that. But
Okay. Great. Okay. We do have a question about testing. What specific tests are you offering to see these particular 5 toxins that you were talking about with your research?
well, so we use a number of different labs. I mean, we do over 200 biomarkers altogether. So we use Vibrant America, but we also use Infinity Lab. We use LabCorp. We use quite a few different labs altogether. And we have a couple labs that we're using on research basis as well.
Okay, great. How is EBOO different from plasmapheresis?
I don't know what EBOO is, so I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you what plasmapheresis is and how it differs from dialysis or plasma donation. Plasmapheresis is simply a process by which you're removing about 70% of a patient's plasma. That means everything in the plasma, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If it's in the plasma, it's coming out. If it's bound to the proteins in the plasma, it's coming out. If it's on the cells or in the cells, it's not coming out because we're going to give them back to you. So, when we do the plasma change, some of the side effects you get are because we're moving so much plasma. For example, people get hypoglycemic because when you take 70% of the plasma, you're taking 70% of the glucose with it too, which is why everybody has to eat before they come in for the procedure. And we're feeding you constantly during the procedure so your blood sugar doesn't drop. Another thing that goes on with this is that we do see people on occasion get a little hypovolemic, because when you remove that many toxins and that many neurotransmitters, the vasculature tends to relax a little bit, but it's not huge, usually 250, 500 cc's, and we reestablish their blood pressure without a problem. Their calcium can go down, but that's because we're giving citrate. Citrate binds calcium, which is what inhibits the coag pathways from working. It's a very mild anticoagulant. But the difference between plasmapheresis and plasma donation is volume. In plasmapheresis, I'm taking out 3 liters and I'm giving you back albumin as a space holder until you make your own plasma within 24 hours. Plasma donation, they're taking 500 cc's, you get up, you walk out. You can walk out without 500 cc's of volume and do just fine. Dialysis, the difference is you have a semi-permeable membrane and only very small particles can go through that membrane. So you're looking at urea, potassium, things like that. Again, we're taking everything out when you do the plasma exchange. And we're giving back albumin and saline, not fresh frozen plasma. In the study, if you want to know why, the side effect rate for all the people like, oh, I want plasma because that's one that makes you younger. It doesn't. That hasn't been proven. What we do know, though, is that when we give, I'm an old trauma surgeon, right? When I used to be in the trauma room and hanging the 10th bag of fresh frozen plasma on a patient who's trauma, I'd be wondering, is the trauma going to kill him or is that bag going to kill him? Because when you give somebody that many units from different people, you're just looking for transfusion reactions. And although it's not common, it does happen when you get fresh frozen plasma that you'll get transfusion related acute lung injury. In other words, during the process, your lungs will start filling up with fluid and they will die right there in your office before you can get them intubated and into the ICU. So don't go do plasma exchange with plasma by anybody for any reason. It's just, we're here for longevity and health, right? Why are we risking all of these things? And plus, all the diseases that come in fresh frozen plasma, although it's screened, doesn't mean it's perfect. There haven't been any documented cases, but toxins certainly come in from the plasma as well. We're getting them out, and I'm giving you back toxins. That's not the case with the albumin because it's scrubbed and stamped and cleaned and irradiated. I mean, there is no toxin except for the albumin. We have certificate of authenticity on that. Plasma, you don't have that. So I hope that fills out that gap a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. A couple questions specifically about the plasmapheresis. Do you have a machine you recommend? And the second kind of follow-up question is that do you offer trainings?
Sure. There are basically 6 companies, but I'd say 2 companies are by far the best: Terumo and Fresenius Kabi. Terumo has the Spectra Optia, and Fresenius has the Amicus. I'm preferable to the Amicus by Fresenius Kabi for basically 3 separate reasons. Number one, their training program and their training personnel, the clinical personnel, top notch. I mean, they go out of their way to make sure you answer everything, and they don't walk. They were in our office probably for the first 10 or 15 plasma changes we did, just answering our questions while we were going through the whole process. Number two, they don't use chemicals to clean the machine. I'm trying to get chemicals out of you. Why are we using a machine that uses chemicals to wash it with? Fresenius Kabi uses ultraviolet, so it sterilizes everything in between the 3 procedures. The third thing is cost. The replacement items on Fresenius are reasonable, and it's about $800 per cassette because in the Fresenius, in the Amicus, you actually have a cassette that snaps on the top of the machine over all the rotors and steering. So when the blood comes in and then goes through all the process, goes through the spinning and comes back out, it never touched the machine. It's inside the cassette. And then when you're done, you have to throw the cassette away, put a new one on. But this way, you don't have to worry about cleaning blood products. I mean, it's just nothing touches the machine. So as an ODR doc, I like simple, I like clean, I like, these are things. Well, when I was picking the machine, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go with these guys. Their training program, they're excellent. I've actually been grateful enough to be able to help them expand this area of their company. And so into the training part, not yet. We just finished all the data collection. We are currently in the process of building software so that we can help doctors do it in their office. But when that occurs, yeah, we will be, and we're looking 3 to 6 months down the road before we're looking to start opening up the marketing window and having other doctors who, are willing to invest in this, willing to get the training. But I'll be honest, because I've been in the field for 30 years, our bar is pretty high. I want doctors who are comfortable with procedures because some doctors aren't. I mean, I remember I'm big on pellet implantation. People come train with me on pellet implantation all the time. And on occasion, I have to tell one of the providers, this isn't something you want to do. They're just not comfortable with the scalpel. And if you're not comfortable with the scalpel, if you're not comfortable with procedures, this isn't something that I would want you to do in your office. Even if you hire somebody who is, because it's your office, you better be comfortable with it. Because at the very end of the day, the buck stops with you. And I don't think that is, I'm not being to be demeaning to anybody. Just some people are good with needles and procedures, and some people are not. But in the ER, we used to have machines. There'd be 6 machines around every trauma patient, um, and I kind of like that stuff anyway.
Very good. Switching gears just a little bit, could you talk about mold toxicity and maybe how this process works for that, or if there is a different process that you
No,
use?
so this is a thing that was. Um, I don't think we were surprised that every toxin got eliminated because you're literally taking out all the plasma and basically giving people an oil change. What we were surprised on is the amount that the reduction. And the other thing we were surprised on is the length. So far, we're up to 6 months, and the numbers at 6 months are looking to be, and we only have a half a dozen people through that, but it's looking to be the same or even better than the 6 week mark, which is making Paul Anderson's head explode because he's like, I got to go rewrite all the textbooks because that's not the way it's supposed to go. They're supposed to hit, they're supposed to go down and they're supposed to go back up again. And at 6 months, we're still going down. But again, the analogy is we cleaned the car up, we started the engine, the detox pathways are working now. Your toxin load is at a low enough level that it can actually work without getting inhibited, is our working hypothesis. So our process is to just keep these people toxin free. As for mold toxicity, yeah, I did that for 25 years and cholestyramine and charcoal and all of those different binders on people, which was a problem because they work, but they don't work. And once you stop it, the mold comes right back. All I can tell you is with this process, we're getting 60 to 90% of every one of the molds out. And we tested dozens of mold toxins. We checked all the toxins, we checked we checked every single one of them, and they're all going down in high double digits. And currently, we don't see them coming back. So I'm very excited because I treated a lot of mold toxic people over the last 25 years, and I've never seen anything work like this before. Now, with that being said, 3 of the patients who were in our study had some, or not to say, but after the study had some mold issues, and let's try it on them. The interesting thing is we finished the procedure. After the 5th procedure, how you doing? Don't feel much different. Okay. 6 weeks later, we did their labs. How you feeling? Don't feel much different. Now we're at 6 months. How you feeling? You know what? I feel pretty good. And and this is out of the people we're seeing across the gate. This is starting to excite me because it almost seems like it took a while for the body to and you get it, Kim, right? I mean, it just takes the body a while to heal. We got the gunk out. We gave it what it needed. It's looking like it's taken some time. I just had an appointment yesterday with one of my guys who's mold toxicity. He's been on Adderall 20 milligrams twice a day for 10 years. I hate it. I don't like any people on Adderall. The guy cannot function without it. We put him through the plasma exchange. On the second exchange, that's when he called me up. He goes, he called me up. I said, you need a refill on your Adderall because I make my patients do it every 30 days just to prove to them that I'm not favorable of it. He goes, no. He goes, I still have 20 left. Now, this guy never had 20 left. And that means out of his 60, he used it 33% left. I was like, seriously? He goes, Doc, I feel pretty good. Now, it's still early to tell, but we've done Beckman depression scores and we did fatigue score on everybody before and after. And the 6 month markers are where we're seeing change in those. We didn't see it at 2 weeks and 6 weeks, but we're seeing it now. And that has me really excited. Like, wow, we might actually have something here. And how much of chronic illness is caused by toxins? And I would say a significant part. At least it plays a part, if not the central part of chronic disease.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Um, One question here. Can patients donate at a local plasma center and get the same benefit?
Great question. 5 years, 6 years ago, I thought the same thing. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send people down and have them donate their plasma frequently. And I could get most of my patients to go 2, 3 times a month um, and never change the numbers. Perhaps if you had them going, they can go twice a week. That's the maximum you can get plasma donation. But you're going to get pretty tired because there's certain things that don't restore within 24 hours, and you have to eat well and take good care of yourself because you start getting this chronic depleted state, and you can start getting these anemias and stuff. So they say you can donate twice a week, but I've never found that to be practical for anybody to do because it still takes you 2 hours to donate. Because every time you go in, you got to go through the process and you got to check all the little boxes. And the interview takes, the first time the interview takes 4 hours. The next time takes 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then the process takes 34 minutes. So we did that and we didn't see a change. However, I'm very hopeful that if we start seeing an increase in toxins, which we haven't yet, I'm going to have some of these patients start going to plasma centers to do plasma donation once or twice a month because our calculations by the result that we have, remember these toxins accumulated over decades. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades. So they don't come back as quickly as we thought they did, at least that we're seeing with our protocol. In plasma change only, we saw some of the markers that were unreversed at 6 months. But we think what we did with adding in all the nutrients and everything your body needs to fuel itself, that we gave the body the next step it needed. But we're thinking that when we start seeing goes up, that should be enough, 500 cc's out of 3.5 liters to take off the top, as it were, of the toxins. And I'm really interested, and we're working with a number of blood banks around the country to start putting that together too. Like I said, the next 3 to 6 months for us is building the software so we can engage all these things with all these clinicians, because it's not just the procedure. There's a lot of stuff that goes on the front side in the testing and the medicines and the lifestyle changes and the videos, and on the back side with more videos and more lifestyle changes, along with keeping up with the nutrient part. I think that's why we're having so much incredible success. Until we get the software and start seeing where people aren't doing sections, I won't know to what degree each part is weighted effectively. All I can tell you is what we're doing right now is incredible, and I'm very excited about the result.
That's wonderful. I love that it's just this full program and it's not just a single procedure. And I love the idea of having a maintenance once they get to a certain point, potentially that could really help.
Well,
Speaking,
that's part of the problem, right? Because how many times am I going to have to do this? And we
yeah,
didn't know the answer at first. Now it seems like once. I mean, it looks like, at least that the data we have currently, and Paul Anderson, we're in uncharted territory because he never thought we'd be 6 months out with the toxins still low or lower than they were at 6 weeks. Like I said, he's going to have to rewrite the textbook. Like, we figured it'd be faster than that. It's not.
wow. Um, so speaking of software, we did have a question about the name of the EMR that you had created.
Sure. The name of the EMR is Power to Practice.
Power to Practice. I've heard of that one.
Everybody has them.
Everybody has, right?
Guys, but we're also integrated with 900 other labs. Now, I don't own that anymore. I sold my interest off that a couple of years ago when I retired, but I still use it in my practice because it's a phenomenal software. If you're looking for a software that integrates with everybody, whether it's a compounding pharmacy, what I call subspecialty labs and specialty labs and like LabCorp Quest, it integrates with everybody. It's on everybody's. They have e-prescribing. Plus we have interconnections with all the compound pharmacies. You can do Botox notifications. You can do IV therapy notes. I mean, it makes things super simple.
Very good. So when you say, a patient maybe needs to go through this process once, how many sessions of this process is in this one-time kind of program?
Sure. So the process is 5 sessions, 4 weeks apart. So we're doing the labs beforehand, and then you come in and you get your plasma exchange and you're getting your IBs. We're doing IV medications. We give you some oral medication that you need to take for the next couple of days. And then we give you a supplement shake that has everything in God's green earth that you need for metabolism in it as well. And they take that. So it's just, you do this for 4 hours, it's one day, and then take this drink with a couple pills every day for the next 28 days, or pills just for a couple of days. and then just take the shake for the next 28 days. You come back, you do the procedure again, and then back to another shake, and then you come back, and then we do that 5 times. And we did it 3 times for some people. And if they have a low count of toxicity and they're not significantly bad toxins like glyphosate, if you're like glyphosate, I'm going to go, you need to go all 5. Because when you start looking at the toxins and looking at, like I have over 25 years, they're all toxic, but some of them are really bad players. And glyphosate is my number one agent that I think is causing a significant number of the medical problem. When you look at the law cases against glyphosate, there are a lot, and there's a lot more that are still under suit. And this stuff, and you got to just understand what this is. It's a very strong oxidative agent. It means it burns whatever it touches. And that means everything in you it touches, it's going to burn, and it keeps burning.
Yeah. Um,
So it's a 6-month program.
6 months total. Do you have a typical cost for this full
So
procedure?
sure. And I've got that cost down. I mean, you look around TPE anywhere in the United States, it's $10,000 per TPE. That really infuriated me. I don't like this being out of everybody's um, reach. Now, what I've done is put this whole program together with all the labs, all the nutrients, everything, the consults, the procedures for $35,000. And that is even, we have a financial program that I'm supporting that you pay half down, and then you can pay the next 10% every 4 weeks until total of, till you're totally paid off. So it's like 50% down and then 10% every month for the next 5 months. And I think that's a reasonable way to do it for people. Our goal is to keep getting those prices down. We've been able to move it down considerably, but at this point, it's just strategic partnerships that we're getting into where we can reduce the cost because of the volume of things that we're doing. And I've done this before with Body Logic, where I had 50 centers. I've done this before when I had Power to Practice, when they had 3 million users. I can get these prices down. It's just going to take me a little time.
Got it. Very good.
But, the thing is, Kim, is you spend $35,000 on a car, and this vehicle is the only one you got for the rest of your life. You better decide which one you want to maintain.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And
If
where
not,
are you
you know,
located?
we're in Chicago. We're in Chicago. I was going to say, if you don't understand that we live in a toxic environment, and those toxins are in everybody, and those toxins are causing medical issues with everybody, and if it's not in you, it will be. I think you better go look at the literature again, because and even the government is starting to uptick the amount of concern they're having. 2 months ago, they issued a warning to practitioners, all practitioners, they should start testing all patients for forever chemicals. You guys saw that, right?
Mhm.
You can do it, even though in the same statement they said, but we have no approved known way of removing them.
Right.
But what they say is that's why you want to make sure you eliminate the exposure, which is true. People are like, what can I do without doing the procedure? On our website, we have we have 3 handouts. One is about the TPE procedure itself. Download it. Very informative. Number 2 is how to get clean, which means all these various methods that you can use to get toxins out of you, including chelation, supplements, so on. I included them all, and including the plasma exchange. And then the final one is keep clean. All the things you can do around your house that are simple and inexpensive to eliminate your exposure. Out of the 120 most toxic of that 144,000, 75% of those are found in your home.
Wow. Yeah. And you said those were available on your website? Those
They're
handouts?
available on our website for downloads. They're
Okay.
just PDFs, and come on in, and my team is more than happy to speak with any of the practitioners, because I want them involved in this. So we do have different financial programs for the physicians themselves.
Mhm.
But we're always happy to have a referral source.
Very good. Very good. Would you mind sharing your slides again, of the slide with your website and contact information so people can jot that down again?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then just kind of scanning through here, one kind of last question. As far as testing goes, I know you mentioned you do a lot of different types of testing. Are you doing blood, urine, both, hair,
Well,
kind of a combination of all?
so we're doing blood and urine.
Blood and urine. Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, I think I got
Yeah.
most of
That's
them
MD
here.
life, MD lifespan. And if they want to get clean or keep clean, the one we have here is the get clean, but it's not too far from the keep.
Okay. So there's that slide again if everyone wants to be able to jot that down. Okay.
That's my personal email. So that's for the physician.
Yes.
If they want to, if you have a client that wants to email us, it's sign me up at MDLifespan.com. But
Great.
I would tell the providers, give me an email first. If you want to talk about, you want to get this done, I'll make it happen. You want your patients to get this done, I'll help you make it happen. This needs to be out there. And people need to know, because this is where my goal is for the rest of my career is I'm going to get this into the industry, and I'm going to make this available for everybody. At this point, we're doing a great job on safety and effectiveness. We just need to work with strategic partners to start getting the cost.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Savage, for joining us today. This was very informative and great information. And thanks everyone else for joining us today and have a wonderful day.
Right, everyone.